Picture this. It's 2003, and the fate of British cycling is, well, it's dead in the water. Actually, it's worse than dead. It's a joke. For 100 years, British riders had been the laughingstock of the cycling world. Since 1908, they had won exactly one gold medal at the Olympic Games. Just one. In a century. And the Tour de France? The biggest, most prestigious race on the planet? No British cyclist had ever won it. Not once. In 110 years. It got so bad that one of the top bike manufacturers in Europe refused to sell bikes to the team because they were afraid. They were literally afraid that seeing British riders on their gear would hurt sales. That is rock bottom. And then they hired a guy named Dave Brailsford. Now, Dave wasn't a magician. He didn't come in with a secret new steroid or a $1 billion budget to buy bionic legs. He came in with a philosophy that sounds almost too stupid to work. He called it the aggregation of marginal gains. Sounds fancy, right? But here's what it actually means. Dave said the whole principle came from the idea that if you broke down everything you could think of that goes into riding a bike and then improved it by just 1%, you will get a significant increase when you put them all together. Just 1%. So they redesigned the bike seats to make them slightly more comfortable. They rubbed alcohol on the tires for a tiny bit of better grip. They asked riders to wear electrically heated overshorts to maintain ideal muscle temperature. But then they got weird. They started testing different massage gels to see which one led to the fastest muscle recovery. They hired a surgeon, a literal surgeon, to teach each rider the best way to wash their hands to reduce the chances of catching a cold. Because if you have a cold, you can't train. They determined the type of pillow and mattress that led to the best night's sleep for each rider. They even painted the inside of the team truck white. Why? So they could spot little bits of dust that would normally slip by unnoticed, but could degrade the performance of the finely tuned bikes. Tiny stuff. Invisible stuff. The kind of stuff that everyone else ignored because it seemed pointless. And for a while, nothing happened. But then came 2008, the Beijing Olympics. The British squad didn't just win, they dominated. They won 60% of the gold medals available. 4 years later, London Olympics. They set 9 Olympic records and 7 world records. That same year, Bradley Wiggins became the first British cyclist to win the Tour de France. Then Chris Froome won it. Then he won it again, and again, and again. In a 10-year span from 2007 to 2017, British cyclists won 178 world championships and 66 Olympic or Paralympic gold medals. They went from the laughingstock of the world to the greatest dynasty in the history of the sport. How do you go from please don't buy our bikes to world domination? It wasn't one big thing. It was 1,000 small things. And this is where you come in, because we are all the British cycling team before 2003. We look at the people who are successful, the billionaires, the fit people, the happy couples, and we think they have something we don't. We think they made one giant leap. We think success is a mountain you have to climb in one day. We say things like, I need a big break, or I need to lose 30 pounds this month, or I need to launch $1 million business. We put so much pressure on ourselves to make some earth-shattering improvement that everyone will talk about. But the truth is much quieter. And honestly, it's much more dangerous. Here is the math, and I promise this is the only math I'll make you do today. If you can get just 1% better each day for 1 year, you'll end up 37 times better by the time you're done. 37 times. Conversely, if you get 1% worse each day for 1 year, you decline nearly down to 0. The gap between a 1% improvement and a 1% decline is the difference between a dynasty and a tragedy. But here is the problem. Here is the villain in our story. We live in a world that is obsessed with instant results. We want the Amazon Prime delivery of success. We want to click a button and have the six-pack abs arrive tomorrow. So we start We go to the gym for 3 days. We eat a salad. We write 1 page of that book. And then we look in the mirror and we see nothing. We check our bank account, nothing. We check the scale, nothing. And so we quit. We say, I've been working hard for a week and I haven't seen any change. This isn't working. This is what James Clear calls the plateau of latent potential. It's a fancy name for a very painful place. It's the valley of death where dreams go to die. Let me give you an image that will stick in your brain forever. Imagine you are sitting in a freezing cold room. It is 25 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see your breath. There is an ice cube sitting on the table in front of you. You stare at it, and you decide to heat up the room. Slowly, 26 degrees. The ice cube is still there, frozen solid. 27 degrees. Nothing happens. 28 degrees. Still nothing. You are using energy. You are putting in the work. You are heating up the room, but you have zero evidence to show for it. 29 degrees, 30 degrees, 31 degrees. At this point, you want to give up. You've raised the temperature 6 degrees. That is a lot of work. And yet, the result is exactly the same as when you started. You feel like a failure. But then, 32 degrees, the ice begins to melt, a 1 degree shift, seemingly no different from the temperature increases before it unlocked a huge change. Now, ask yourself, was the work you did at 26 degrees wasted? Was the work at 29 degrees wasted? No, it was simply stored. It was building up the potential. The action happens at 32 degrees, but the success was created at 25, 26, and 27. This is why it is so hard to build good habits. Because in the beginning, there is a gap between what you think should happen and what actually happens. You expect progress to be linear. You think, if I put in 1 hour of work, I should get 1 unit of results. But reality doesn't work like that. Reality is delayed. This is the cancer of discouragement. It eats away at your motivation because you are doing the right thing, but getting the wrong feedback. You feel like you are banging your head against a wall. James Clear has a favorite quote about this. It's from a social reformer named Jacob Riis. He said, "When nothing seems to help, I go and look at a stonecutter hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. Yet at the 101st blow, it will split in two. And I know it was not that last blow that did it, but all that had gone before. All that had gone before. You have to be willing to be the stonecutter. You have to be willing to hit the rock 100 times with 0 results. But most of us, we hit the rock 10 times, see no crack, and say, well, I guess I'm just not strong enough. Or, I guess this isn't the right rock. We blame ourselves. We blame the world. But the problem isn't you. And the problem isn't the rock. The problem is your strategy. The problem is that you are focused on the wrong thing. You are focused on the goal. I want to win the Tour de France. I want to melt the ice. I want to break the rock. But here is a radical idea. An idea that might make you angry at first, but if you let it sink in, it will change everything. Forget about goals. Seriously, forget about them. I know. Every guru on Instagram tells you to set big goals. Visualize your success. But think about this. If you look at any Olympic race, who has the goal of winning the gold medal? The winner has that goal, but the loser has that goal too. Every candidate who applies for a job wants to get the job. Every couple that gets married wants to stay together. Winners and losers have the exact same goals. So, if the goal is the same, the goal cannot be the thing that makes the difference. The goal didn't make the British cycling team win. They wanted to win the Tour de France every year before 2003. The desire was there. The goal was there. But the results were not. So if goals aren't the answer, what is? It's the machine that produces the results. It's the system. Goals are about the results you want to achieve. Systems are about the processes that lead to those results. If you're a coach, your goal might be to win a championship. Your system is the way you recruit players, manage your assistant coaches, and conduct practice. If you're a musician, Your goal might be to play a new piece. Your system is how often you practice, how you break down difficult measures, and your method for receiving feedback. Now, here is the million-dollar question. If you completely ignored your goals and focused only on your system, would you still succeed? If you were a basketball coach and you ignored the goal of winning a championship and focused only on what your team does at practice each day, would you still get results? I think you would. The goal in any sport is to finish with the best score, but it would be ridiculous to spend the whole game staring at the scoreboard. The only way to actually win is to get better each day. In the words of three-time Super Bowl winner Bill Walsh, the score takes care of itself. And this applies to everything. If you want better results, then forget about setting goals. Focus on your system instead. Why? Because goals have a nasty side effect. They restrict your happiness. Think about it. When you set a goal, you are implicitly saying, I'm not good enough yet, but I will be when I reach my goal. You are putting off happiness until the next milestone. Once I lose 20 pounds, then I'll be happy. Once I launch the business, then I'll relax. You are teaching yourself that happiness is always in the future. It's never here. It's never now. Furthermore, goals create an either-or conflict. Either you achieve your goal and you are successful, or you fail and you are a disappointment. You mentally box yourself into a narrow version of happiness. But a system can be successful in many different forms, not just the one you first imagined. If your system is to write every day, you are successful the moment you sit down. You don't have to wait for the book to be published to be happy. You can be satisfied anytime your system is running. And this brings us to the deepest layer of behavior change, the layer that most people miss entirely. Most people try to change their habits by focusing on what they want to achieve. I want to run a marathon. I want to stop smoking. This is outcome-based habits, but there is a better way. It's called identity-based habits. Imagine two people resisting a cigarette. Someone offers a cigarette to the first person. They say, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." Sounds reasonable, right? It's a standard response. But listen closer. What are they actually saying? They are saying, I am a smoker who is trying to be something else. They still believe they are a smoker. They are hoping their behavior will change while carrying around the same beliefs. Now imagine the second person. Someone offers them a cigarette. They say, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." It's a small difference, but the shift is massive. I'm not a smoker signals a change in identity. Smoking was part of their past life, not their current one. They don't identify with it anymore. True behavior change is identity change. You might start a habit because of motivation, but the only reason you'll stick with it is that it becomes part of who you are. Anyone can convince themselves to go to the gym once or twice. But if you don't shift your belief behind the behavior, if you don't start seeing yourself as an athlete, then it's hard to stick with it long term. Behavior that is incongruent with the self will not last. You can have a goal to be rich, but if your identity is someone who consumes rather than creates, you'll be pulled back to spending. You can have a goal to be healthy, but if your identity is someone who prioritizes comfort over effort, you'll be pulled back to the couch. So, how do you change your identity? It's a simple two-step process. 1. Decide the type of person you want to be. 2. Prove it to yourself with small wins. This is where the atomic habits come back in. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. No single instance will transform your beliefs. But as the votes build up, so does the evidence of your new identity. If you write one page, that is a vote for being a writer. If you practice your violin for 5 minutes, that is a vote for being a musician. If you start a workout, that is a vote for being an athlete. You are literally casting votes for your future self. You don't have to be perfect. In any election, there are going to be votes for the other side. You don't need a unanimous vote to win an election. You just need a majority. So stop worrying about the results. Stop worrying about the goal. Instead, ask yourself, who is the type of person that could get the outcome I want? Who is the type of person that could lose 40 pounds? Maybe it's someone who is healthy. Who is the type of person that could learn a new language? Maybe it's someone who is consistent. Once you have that handle, you can start building the machine. And The machine, the human brain, works in a very specific loop, a 4-step loop that runs every second of your life, whether you realize it or not. 1. Cue. 2. Craving. 3. Response. 4. Reward. This loop is the backbone of every habit you have, good or bad. The phone buzzes. Oh, you want to know who messaged you? Craving. You pick up the phone. Response. You satisfy your curiosity. Reward. And then your brain connects the cue, phone buzzing, with the reward, satisfaction. Next time it buzzes, you pick it up automatically. If we want to hack this loop, if we want to engineer our lives, we have to manipulate these 4 steps. We have to rely on the 4 laws of behavior change. How do we create a good habit? 1. Make it obvious, the cue. 2. Make it attractive, the craving. 3. Make it easy, the response. 4. Make it satisfying, the reward. And how do we break a bad habit? We just invert them. 1. Make it invisible. 2. Make it unattractive. 3. Make it difficult. 4. Make it unsatisfying. Let's start with the first law. Make it obvious. Most of our habits are invisible to us. We do them without thinking. That's the whole point of a habit. But if you want to change a habit, you first have to be aware of it. You can't change what you don't see. In Japan, the railway system is famous for being one of the best in the world. And if you ever watch the train operators, you will see them doing something very strange. They are constantly pointing at things and talking to themselves. When the train approaches a signal, the operator points at it and says, "Signal is green." When the train enters a station, the operator points at the speedometer and calls out the exact speed. When it's time to leave, the conductor points at the timetable and states the time. It looks silly. It looks like they are crazy. But this system, known as pointing and calling, reduces errors by up to 85% and cuts accidents by 30%. Why? Because it raises the level of awareness from a non-conscious habit to a more conscious level. By pointing and speaking, they are forcing themselves to acknowledge the reality of the situation. They are making the invisible visible. We need to do the same thing. We need to point and call our own lives. So, here is your first tactical assignment. I want you to create a habits scorecard. It's simple. Just make a list of your daily habits. Everything you do from the moment you wake up, turn off alarm, check phone, go to bathroom, weigh myself, brush teeth. For each habit, ask yourself, is this a good habit, a bad habit, or a neutral habit? If it's a good habit, put a plus sign, plus. If it's a bad habit, put a minus sign. If it's neutral, put an equal sign, equals. Don't judge yourself. Don't try to change anything yet. Just observe. Like a scientist in a lab, oh, look at that. I spend 20 minutes on Instagram before I even get out of bed. Interesting. The first step to changing bad habits is to be on the lookout for them. You have to shout, "Signal is red," before you can stop the train. But knowing is only half the battle. Now we need to design the cue for the new habit we want to build. And the 2 most common cues are time and location. Most people are vague. They say, "I'm going to eat healthier." That's not a plan. That's a wish. You need an implementation intention. A fancy psychological term for a simple formula. I will behavior at time and location. I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my kitchen. I will study Spanish for 20 minutes at 6 p.m. in my bedroom. I will exercise for 1 hour at 5 p.m. at the local gym. Hundreds of studies have shown that people who make a specific plan for when and where they will perform a new habit are. The difference between being in motion and taking action. When you are in motion, you are planning and strategizing and learning. Those are all good things, but they don't produce a result. Action, on the other hand, is the type of behavior that will deliver an outcome. If I outline 20 ideas for articles I want to write, that is motion. If I actually sit down and write an article, that is action. If I search for a better diet plan and read a few books on the topic, that is motion. If I eat a healthy meal, that is action. Sometimes motion is useful, but it will never produce an outcome by itself. It doesn't matter how many times you talk to the personal trainer, that motion will never get you in shape. Only the action of working out will get the result you're looking to achieve. So why do we do it? Why do we stay in motion? Because it feels like we are making progress without running the risk of failure. Motion allows us to feel like we're getting things done, but really, we're just preparing to get things done. When preparation becomes a form of procrastination, you need to change something. You don't want to merely be planning, you want to be practicing. And practice and simply doing the reps is the holy grail. There is a famous story about a photography professor at the University of Florida named Jerry Uelsman. On the first day of class, he divided his students into two groups. Everyone on the left side of the studio, he said, would be in the quantity group. They would be graded solely on the amount of work they produced. On the final day of class, he would tally the number of photos submitted by each student. 100 photos would rate an A, 90 photos a B, 80 photos a C, and so on. Everyone on the right side of the studio would be in the quality group. They would be graded only on the excellence of their work. They would only need to produce one photo during the semester, but to get an A, it had to be a nearly perfect image. At the end of the term, he was surprised to find that all the best photos were produced by the quantity group. Why? Because during the semester, these students were busy taking photos, experimenting with composition and lighting, testing out various methods in the darkroom, and learning from their mistakes. In the process of creating hundreds of photos, they honed their skills. Meanwhile, the quality group sat around speculating about perfection. They spent the whole semester in motion, paralyzing themselves with theory. In the end, they had little to show for their efforts other than unverified theories and one mediocre photo. You don't need to map out the perfect habit. You just need to practice it. This brings us to the law of least effort. Human behavior follows the law of least effort. We will naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of work. It is crucial to make your habits so easy that you'll do them even when you don't feel like it. And the best way to do this is the 2-minute rule. The rule is simple. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do. You'll find that nearly any habit can be scaled down into a 2-minute version. Read before bed each night becomes read 1 page. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. Study for class becomes open my notes. Run 3 miles becomes tie my running shoes. The idea is to make your habits as easy as possible to start. Anyone can meditate for 1 minute. Anyone can read 1 page. Anyone can put 1 item of clothing away. And this is a powerful strategy because once you've started doing the right thing, it is much easier to continue doing it. A new habit should not feel like a challenge. The actions that follow can be challenging, but the first 2 minutes should be easy. What you want is a gateway habit that naturally leads you down a more productive path. You are trying to master the art of showing up. A habit must be established before it can be improved. If you can't learn the basic skill of showing up, then you have little hope of mastering the finer details. Instead of trying to engineer a perfect habit from the start, do the easy thing on a more consistent basis. You have to standardize before you can optimize. But what about bad habits? How do we use this law against them? We invert it, make it difficult. We need to increase the friction. In 1830, Victor Hugo was facing an impossible deadline. 12 months earlier, the French author had promised his publisher a new book, but instead of writing, he spent the year pursuing other projects, entertaining guests, and delaying his work. Frustrated, the publisher set a deadline less than 6 months away. The book had to be finished by February 1831. Hugo concocted a strange plan to beat his procrastination. He collected all of his clothes and asked an assistant to lock them away in a large chest. He was left with nothing to wear except a large shawl. Lacking any suitable clothing to go outdoors, he remained in his study and wrote furiously during the fall and winter of 1830. The Hunchback of Notre Dame was published 2 weeks early, on the 14th of January, 1831. This is called a commitment device, a choice you make in the present that controls your actions in the future. You can do the modern version of this. If you waste too much time on Instagram, delete the app. If you want to use it, you have to download it, log in, and wait. That friction is enough to stop the mindless scrolling. If you spend too much money, leave your credit cards at home and only carry cash. Make the bad habit painful to start, because ultimately, we are simple creatures. We repeat what is rewarded and we avoid what is punished. This leads us to the final piece of the puzzle, the fourth law, the law that rules them all. Make it satisfying. The first three laws, make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, increase the odds that a behavior will be performed this time. The fourth law, make it satisfying, increases the odds that a behavior will be repeated next time. But there is a trap here, a biological trap that has destroyed millions of dreams. It is the difference between an immediate return environment and a delayed return environment. For 99% of human history, we lived in an immediate return environment. You are a hunter on the savannah. You feel hungry. You spot a gazelle, opportunity. You kill it and eat it, immediate reward. You see a storm coming. You find a cave. You are dry, immediate reward. Our brains evolved in this world. We are wired for now. We value the present moment much more than the future. But modern society? It is a delayed return environment. You go to work today, but you don't get paid until the end of the month. You go to the gym today, but you don't see the six-pack for 6 months. You save money now, but you don't get to retire for 30 years. Do you see the conflict? Your brain is a hardware upgrade from the Stone Age trying to run software from the 21st century. We want the cookie now, even if we want to be thin later. We want to buy the video game now, even if we want to be rich later. Bad habits usually feel good now, but bad later. Good habits usually feel bad now, but good later. So, if you want to stick to a good habit in a delayed return world, you have to add a little bit of immediate return to it. You have to hack your own evolution. There was a couple who wanted to stop eating out so much and start cooking at home. They wanted to save money for a trip to Europe. But saving for Europe is too far away. It's too abstract. The brain can't feel it. So they opened a savings account and named it Trip to Europe. Every time they skipped a restaurant meal and cooked at home, they transferred $50 into that account. Immediately, they saw the number go up. Ding! Reward. They didn't get to Europe that night, but they got the satisfaction of seeing the progress. They made the long-term habit feel good in the short term. This brings us to the most powerful tool in your arsenal, the habit tracker. It's simple. Get a calendar. Every day you do your habit, put a big red X on that day. Jerry Seinfeld uses this for writing jokes. He said his only goal was to not break the chain. After a few days, you have a chain. You like seeing the chain. You don't want to break the chain. Making progress is satisfying. Visual measures provide clear evidence of your progress. As a result, they reinforce your behavior and add a little bit of immediate gratification to any activity. But be careful. Life will interrupt you. You will get sick. You will have a family emergency. You will be tired. The chain will break. And this is the critical moment. This is what separates the winners from the quitters. The never miss twice rule. If I miss one day of writing, I make sure to write the next day. If I eat an entire pizza on Friday, I eat a healthy salad on Saturday. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. The problem isn't slipping up. The problem is thinking that if you can't be perfect, you shouldn't do it at all. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to get back on track. Lost days hurt you more than successful days help you. If you start with $100, then a 50% gain takes you to $150. But a 33% loss takes you back to $100. In other words, avoiding a 33% loss is just as valuable as achieving a 50% gain. Do not break the chain of identity. Even if you can only do 5 minutes instead of an hour, do it. Keep the identity alive. But there is a bigger threat than missing a day. A threat that comes from inside you. Boredom. We are told that we need passion and motivation. We think that successful people have some bottomless well of excitement, but that's a lie. The greatest threat to success is not failure, it is boredom. We get bored with habits because they stop delighting us. The outcome becomes expected, and as our habits become ordinary, we start to derail our progress to seek novelty. This is the Goldilocks rule. Imagine you are playing tennis. If you play against a 4-year-old, you will become bored quickly. It's too easy. If you play against Serena Williams, you will become demotivated quickly. It's too hard. But if you play against someone who is just a little bit better than you will lose some points, you will win some points. You have a chance. You are focused. You are in the zone. This is the sweet spot. To stay motivated, you need to work on tasks of just manageable difficulty. But eventually, even the Goldilocks tasks become routine. You master them. And then you get bored again. And this is the cold, hard truth. The only difference between the elite and the amateur is that the elite handle the boredom of doing the same thing over and over again. You think the gold medalist loves practice every day? No. They hate it just as much as you do, but they do it anyway. Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way. Professionals know what is important to them and work toward it with purpose. Amateurs get pulled off course by the urgencies of life. But there is a dark side to mastering a habit, a side that nobody talks about. We think that once a habit is automatic, we have won. We think we can go on autopilot. But the upside of habits is that we can do things without thinking. The downside of habits is that we stop paying attention to little errors. You do something 1,000 times and you stop thinking about how to do it better. You just assume you've mastered it. You switch your brain to autopilot. And autopilot is dangerous. This is the downside of habits that nobody warns you about. We think habits are purely good. We think, if I can do this without thinking, I have won. But actually, when you can do it without thinking, you stop paying attention to the tiny feedback signals. You stop noticing the small mistakes. Think about a surgeon. If a surgeon performs the same heart surgery 500 times, they might get faster, they might get more efficient, but they also might get careless. They might skip a safety check because I've done this 1,000,000 times, nothing ever goes wrong. And that is exactly when the tragedy happens. Good enough is the enemy of great. This explains why you see people who have been driving a car for 20 years, yet they are still terrible drivers. They have the habit of driving, sure, but they stop trying to improve after the first year. They have repeated the same mistakes for 19 years. They didn't have 20 years of experience. They had 1 year of experience, repeated 20 times. So here is the formula you need to tattoo on your brain if you want to reach the top 1% of any field. Habits plus deliberate practice equals mastery. You need the habit to make the action automatic, so you don't have to waste energy fighting yourself to start. But once the habit is established, you need deliberate practice to keep it sharp. What does that look like? Let me tell you the story of Pat Riley and the Los Angeles Lakers. In 1986, the Lakers were one of the most talented teams in basketball history. They had Magic Johnson, they had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but in the playoffs that year, they stumbled. They lost. They were humiliated. Why? Because they got comfortable. They thought their talent was enough. So the next season, their coach, Pat Riley, didn't scream at them. He didn't demand that they win the championship. He implemented a system called CBE, Career Best Effort. He asked each player to improve their output by just 1% over their career average. If you averaged 10 rebounds a game, he wanted 10.1. If you averaged 15 points, he wanted 15.2. If you made 2 turnovers, he wanted 1.9. He told them, if 12 players on this roster improve their performance by 1% in 5 different areas, we will be 60% better as a team. It sounds like the British cycling story, doesn't it? That's because it is the universal law of high performance. The Lakers bought in. They stopped looking for the big plays and started focusing on the tiny details. They focused on the practice. The result? 8 months later, they didn't just win the NBA championship. They steamrolled the entire league. They became arguably the greatest team in the history of the sport. They didn't win because they wanted it more. They won because they had a system for reviewing and refining their habits. You need a system for reflection. Without reflection, you can't see the drift. Imagine you are a pilot flying a plane from Los Angeles to New York City. You take off. You are heading east. But if the nose of the plane is pointed just 3.5 degrees south, just a tiny, invisible shift, you won't land in New York. You will land in Washington, D.C. You will be 225 miles away from your destination. And the scary part? During the flight, you won't feel a thing. The clouds look the same. The sky looks the same. You think you are on track, but you are drifting. This is what happens to us. We drift in our marriages. We drift in our careers. We drift in our health. We don't wake up fat one day. We drift there, calorie by calorie, over 10 years. We don't wake up divorced. We drift there, ignored conversation by ignored conversation. This is why top performers have a review ritual. Eliud Kipchoge, the greatest marathon runner alive, takes notes after every single practice. He reviews his day. How did I feel? What went wrong? How can I be 1% better tomorrow? You need to do the same. You don't need to be an Olympian. You just need to be conscious. Try this. Every Friday afternoon, take 15 minutes. Just 15. Review your habits scorecard. Look at your X chain on the calendar. Ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What went well this week? 2. What went wrong? 3. Where did I drift? That's it. That is the course correction. That is how you get the plane back to New York. But there is one final trap, a psychological trap that can destroy everything you've built, even if you do everything else right. It is the dark side of identity. Earlier, I told you that the most powerful way to change a habit is to change your identity. To say, I am a smoker versus I am not a smoker. But this weapon has a double edge. The more you cling to a specific identity, the harder it is to grow. You become brittle. If your entire sense of self-worth is wrapped up in being the CEO, what happens when you sell the company or get fired? If you are the soldier, what happens when the war ends? If you are the athlete, what happens when you blow out your knee? I have seen strong men crumble because they lost the label they attached to their names. They didn't just lose a job, they lost their soul. This is identity paralysis. When you cling too tightly to who you were, you cannot become who you need to be. So the final masterstroke of the strategic storyteller is this. Keep your identity small. Don't define yourself by what you do. Define yourself by the attributes you possess. Stop saying, I am a musician. Start saying, I am the type of person who is disciplined and loves to create art. Stop saying, I am a CEO. Start saying, I am the type of person who builds systems and empowers others. Do you see the difference? If you can't play music anymore, you can still create art in other ways. If you aren't a CEO anymore, you can still build systems in a new field. The title can be taken away. The attribute is yours forever. Be like water. Water can flow around obstacles. Ice shatters because it is rigid. So, where does this leave us? We have traveled a long way together. We started in a frozen room, watching an ice cube at 25 degrees. We learned about the 1%. We learned how to design our environment. We learned how to hack our dopamine. We learned how to embrace the boredom of consistency. You might be feeling excited right now. You might be ready to change your life. But I have to be honest with you. This excitement will fade. Motivation is like a sugar rush. It hits hard and then it crashes. In a week, you will be tired. In a month, you will be bored. In a year, life will punch you in the face. And when that happens, you won't need motivation. You will need a system. There is an ancient Greek paradox called the Sorites paradox. It talks about a heap of sand. If you put 1 grain of sand on the table, is it a heap? No. If you add another grain, still no. Another? No. But if you keep adding grains, one by one, eventually you have a heap. You can never point to the exact moment when it became a heap. You can never point to the 1 grain of sand that made the difference. But the heap exists. Your life is that heap of sand. No single workout will make you fit. No single page will make you a writer. No single saved dollar will make you rich. But if you keep adding the grains, if you keep trusting the system, the heap will appear. Success is not a goal to be reached. It is a way of life to be lived. It is the commitment to show up every day, even when you don't see the results, even when the room is still 26 degrees, because you know, deep down, that 32 degrees is coming. You are the architect. You are the stone cutter. Don't look at the summit of the mountain. It's too far. It's too scary. Just look at your feet. Look at the step in front of you. Make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, make it satisfying, and then take the step. I'm your name, and this has been the strategic deconstruction of atomic habits. If you want to keep climbing this mountain with us, if you want to build a mind that is capable of anything, you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, join the tribe, and I'll see you at the top.